All right, so my name is Mylette Miranda. I go by Mylette. I'm a detective with Avondale Police Department. I've been here since 2016, so it's been almost 10 years, which is really cool because it went by really fast. I have been part of the Special Victims Unit since, I think, 2020, 4 years, so I'm about to enter year 5. And I don't mean to, we both work in the same department. So Special Victims Unit is anything sex crimes for either adults or children, or physical abuse, or anything that has to do with sex crimes, whether that's internet crimes or child crimes, and that's what we cover. So it's a lot.
Yeah.
You wanna introduce yourself?
So my name is Luisa Maeda. I'm also a detective with Avondale PD, also work with Special Victims Unit. I've been with Avondale PD since 2018. However, I started off as a detention officer there, then I went sworn. I've been assigned with the Special Victims Unit since 2021. I believe she actually went in like
Maybe
May,
it was
the summer.
yeah, we're not too far.
Yeah,
apart.
she had been like 6 months prior before I went in. I went in December of 2021. So yeah, like she explained, we do focus a lot on like the child sex crimes, abuse. She also, which
that's right.
she forgot to mention.
I forgot to mention this because it is a part-time, and I hope one day, fingers crossed, it becomes a full-time. I also am part of we're called the West Valley Sex Trafficking Task Force. So it's part of West Valley agencies that come together to do operations to target child sex traffickers or sex traffickers, adults and children, and then identify victims of sex trafficking. So I've been doing that for almost 3 years now, which that also flew by because I still remember taking trainings to hopefully maybe get my foot in the door for that. And then she has also helped out with that too, but since it's pretty minimal, it's a part-time position, so we kind of help out and get together when we can. Because on the West Valley, we tend to have smaller agencies, so we don't have, unfortunately, enough people to do a full-time task force, so.
Yeah.
Not a big here sex trafficking?
Oh no, it's big.
It's
really?
Yeah. It's everywhere.
Yeah.
And unfortunately, I can dive into that a little bit more. It really does start with social media. Everything is on social media.
I don't know if you guys seen lately on the news, like Scottsdale PD just had a sting where they got like all these arrests. That's pretty much what the task force is, like Glendale PD, Avondale PD, Scottsdale, Surprise, all of them. You know, we all come together and then it's an operation, undercover operation.
We try to target prostitution, and in I think that's really where my passion is starting to go. In those operations, we try to, our goal is to identify victims of sex trafficking, and in those times, sometimes children are identified that are posing as adults. So it's everywhere. It's not just in a particular area. It happens anywhere. So our goal is to hopefully minimize that, just like we're trying to minimize everything else, but it's a work in progress, so.
Yeah.
In the meantime, do you guys have any questions for us as far as like what we do or anything that has to do with, before we dive into this PowerPoint? No? Okay.
So,
and I know you said there's a social workers, or?
Yes.
Social workers, okay. For the school here? Okay. So you guys also deal with like when there's a report or anything, the kids go to you guys talk to them, and then eventually like a report will be sent to us if something is going on, correct?
We'll call you.
Yeah, she's like, we call you.
So I started with some facts on this, which I actually found interesting because I don't have teenagers. I have a 5-year-old, and I'm very much enjoying those years. She has teenagers, so yeah, so it's a huge difference.
Let me tell you.
I got this from an article, and it's called How Many Teens Use Social Media in 2024, which I don't remember the exact website, but I did put it at the end, I believe. But it was a study done on children in the United States aged 13 to 19. So yes, the 18 and 19 kind of skews it a little bit, but I still thought it was interesting. So over 93% of teens are using social media, which is approximately 37 million teens alone in the United States, while 75 of the teenagers have at least one active social media profile. It is very common, if you guys didn't know, we know it because we see people's phones all the time, kids' phones in particular. They have multiple Instagrams, I don't know if you can have multiple Snapchats, but basically it's not uncommon for a kid to have more than one social media on the same platform, if not various platforms.
They have, real quick, they have, which I'm not sure if that's something that you have included on this. With Instagram, kids nowadays, I have learned this because I also learned it through my kids. They have what is called a parent-proof Instagram, and then they have a friend Instagram.
Yeah.
So the parent-proof Instagram typically is an Instagram of them with no photos, just their account, and they'll post like on their stories. Now their friend's Instagram is different. They post everything.
They also
I forget
call
what
it
they
a
call it. There's a name for it.
Finsta. Have you heard of that?
No. What you call your parent versus your like real account. I'll have to ask my daughter.
Yeah.
I don't know. Last I heard, and I don't know how outdated this is. This wasn't that long ago. A fake Instagram, they would call it a Finsta,
Finsta,
which is the
yeah.
one for your parents, or the one that's like parent approved.
Yeah.
So that is also a thing, and you can easily switch from your real Instagram to your fake Instagram. So, teen girls are more likely to use social media compared to teen boys. An average teenager spends about 4.8 hours on social media platforms every day, which is crazy. 68% of kids under the age of 13 are using social media platforms in the United States. 47% of those respondents are accessing TikTok, and 31% are accessing Snapchat. 46% of 11-year-olds and 51% of 12-year-olds currently have a social media profile. So they did go a little bit younger. So it even broke it down to what was the most popular. Oh, how do I go back? I'm sorry. Do you guys, hold on, I'm sorry. There we go, okay. Now, super familiar with this. So the number one most used social media for kids is YouTube, and it's broken down between boys and girls. That seems to be the most common with boys. Well, pretty popular for girls too, actually. TikTok is number 2. Snapchat's number 3, Instagram is number 4, and Facebook is number 5.
It does that. You're good.
Okay. I got it. There we go. And then,
What do they do on YouTube though? Are they does that mean
there's
just watching
something called
videos?
YouTube Shorts, which is very similar to Instagram Reels, if you guys have an Instagram, where you can just kind of swipe up, and it's literally what I think looks like Reels, and it's the same, it's very similar, just videos of people doing stuff. I don't know.
And they get like subscribers, like Instagram you get followers, and then TikTok, YouTube, they get like subscribers, and then it goes as far as like, you guys know, like the influencers, like I think her name is like Charlie.
I'm not
My
familiar
kids
with all
listen
of
to
them.
them all the time.
Amelia?
Yes,
Yeah.
they get paid, so kids are trying to like recreate content, and then they dive in more into like the inappropriate stuff.
So this is the top 10 most used social media accounts amongst teenagers, and this is just teenagers in general. They didn't separate boys or girls. And I did put the icons up here, so from left to right, that's YouTube, TikTok, Snapchat, Instagram, Facebook, Discord, WhatsApp, X, which used to be called Twitter, Twitch, which I'm actually not familiar with.
It's an online gaming platform,
Yeah.
very similar to
Oh,
Discord.
it's very similar to Discord.
Yeah.
I worked with Discord before. That was a nightmare. Then there's Reddit, and I personally put in Roblox because
Yeah.
there's a
yeah.
chatting section in Roblox, and my 5-year-old uses Roblox, so that's kind of, thank God he can't chat like a grown-up, but that's kind of concerning for me as a parent. A lot of people don't know what these icons are, so that's why I put them up just in case. So why do teens use social media? They did a survey, and these were the most common reasons: finding funny posts, looking at memes, seeing what's trending or being talked about, watching or following sports, sharing information on causes they care about, posting their opinions, reading the news, meeting new people, which that always kind of scares me. I don't know about you guys, but and so how many teens have electronic devices? So 85% of all teens have a phone, 70% have a laptop, and 60% have a gaming console, which I think a lot of these kids have all 3. I don't know if you've ran into that, but I have. Or laptop, tablet, whatever can access the internet. So that's why these social media things or applications are so popular. So we'll kind of go into online crime. children aged 8 to 16 are being targeted online by predators. Adult predators pose as children or people they are not. In other words, there's gonna be your predators that are gonna pose as children, and then there's gonna be your predators that completely have an alias, like it's not somebody who they are, but they're an adult and they're still trying to talk to kids. So whoever not your kid, but whoever a kid is potentially speaking to might not even be that person. Do you want to?
Yes, parents need to be aware that just because your child knows not to talk to strangers, that doesn't mean that they don't know how to avoid stranger danger online. So that is the new thing, right? It's not so much about like, hey, don't talk to strangers, which it is a thing. However, like kids are now on the internet and we don't talk to them so much about stranger danger online or online grooming. Go ahead.
Well, I'm one of the social workers, I'm here at Lakin, and I find that when I talk to students, it's what do you like to do? Oh, I like to play roadblocks. Oh my goodness, okay, talk to me, I don't understand that game, whatever. Oh, but my friends, and I'm like, your friends? And I'm like, so are those your friends from school? No, they're friends that they've met online. And I say, well, do you ever get together with them? Well, no, Miss Bowden, I don't. And the first thing, unfortunately, that comes to my mind is it could be an adult.
Mhm.
And it could be someone who has had sex charges.
Yes.
But that would technically be a violation of his or her parole, correct?
It depends on their specific rules. So yes, it could be, but we wouldn't know that unless we knew who they were and we could say
Right.
exactly what their.
And that's always concerning to me, and I'm always then encouraging, does your parent or your guardian know your friends? I mean, I use their language then. Well, no, but it's interesting to me that they're their friends, but yet
Right.
you don't know physically who this person is
Yeah,
and who
because
they're calling friends.
all they see is a little like
Is it
a
just
little
an
video
icon
game
or like an
icon
emoji
thing.
or something?
Yes, and then real quick, just a side note on that, I did not know much about Roblox, or like I wasn't very educated until I started working in the unit and I learned all these things. Roblox has a thing like, which I'm sure you guys know, it's the chatting portion, and then when it comes to the online grooming, there is people out there, predators, who are buying these kids like outfits for their little like icon. Their little avatar, I think that's what it's called, I'm not sure. So then they become friends, hey, I'll buy you this, I'll buy you, so the more they can buy for them, they can build like bigger houses and schools, and then they're popular right online. So that is a thing too that we don't sometimes like pay attention to our kids. Oh, they're playing a video game, it's fine, it's safe because they're not outside, they're inside, they're at home. That's where it starts, like that's where the danger is. Everything posted online or shared through electronic devices has a digital footprint. Nothing is gone forever on devices or online. So anything they post online, it's gonna stay there forever.
That goes too for photographs or videos, even amongst like adults. When you send something, just because you delete it on your phone doesn't mean we can't recover it. There's always a chance we can recover it. Anything posted online, it's literally there forever. There's no way to delete stuff from the internet. I'm sure we could, not me, but like there is a way to delete things, but I promise you someone somewhere will find these images.
That goes for Snapchats too, correct?
Yep.
Yes.
Oh, well, and you never know who took a screen recording or captured it.
Right. And that's one thing that I'm not sure that it's a thing now. I know before Snapchat, if you screenshot a photo, it notifies the other person. However, when it's a recording, I don't think it does that, and a lot of kids don't know that. Or they do and they don't care.
So children are suspects to other children. Many parents do not want to believe their child is the suspect. Child on child crime is on a rise. I'm sure you guys see this a lot. This is your typical.
Every day.
Someone's nudes got leaked is what they want to say, and then it goes through the whole school, and it literally is probably the cause of maybe one other child that got a hold of it, that showed it to somebody, and the next thing you know, it's around all of the 7th grade, for example.
But is it true that then all of them are guilty as far as potentially being charged? Right.
Every person who has shared it or showed it to somebody is at stake for getting charged.
So pretty much like being in possession or distributing any photo looking at a child with like, in a nudity state, in a state of nudity, I'm sorry. They, like she said, they are part of an investigation. We're not just gonna disregard, like, and parents have a hard time. Well, they send it to my kid, but then like your kid send it to another kid, and that's what we're trying to educate parents. Like, it's not okay, and the kids too, for them to know that.
So, I'm sorry, I went ahead of myself. Actually, I can just kind of put them all up. Okay, so these are mostly the crimes we work with, not all of them, but that has to do with online crimes. So the first one is sexual exploitation of a minor. To put it in very simple terms, this is what's known as child pornography, or the new terminology that we use now in the courts is child sexual abuse material, or CSAM, the abbreviation for that. And the reason the change for child pornography to child sexual abuse material is because child pornography is getting, that term is desensitized because it's used so often that it doesn't have an effect anymore. So how long, that was like maybe two years ago,
Just
right?
recent, yeah.
So now people like in our profession, as far as in the courts and in search warrants and stuff, we call it child sexual abuse material. In case you guys ever hear that, it's the same thing as formerly known as child porn. So anyone in possession of it, anyone redistributing it, there's like 5 different terms to basically say either you have it, you created it, or you shared it by either electronic means or if you print it out and give it to somebody. That's sexual exploitation of a minor. If you can identify that this child is under 18 and or appears to be under 18. So even one image or video is punishable up to 10 years. So if you have more than one image, each one is punishable by 10 years. That's up to the courts, but that's typically the timeline. Children can be charged with that, even if they're creating their own pornography. So they don't necessarily, just because there's naked pictures of a child, that doesn't always mean they're the victim. If they're creating their own images, if they're sharing their own images, they are in violation of that crime. And just because they're a juvenile doesn't mean that they're exempt from being charged with it. And there's unlawful use of an electronic communication device by a minor. That's typically charged with minors. It's basically the same thing as sexual exploitation of a minor. If you are sharing nude images or videos to another juvenile, so juvenile to another juvenile, it's still a crime. They still get charged, and sometimes every time we identify a crime, you're getting charged with everything. So you would probably get charged with the first one and then the second one. Do you want to talk about that?
Yes, the unlawful disclosures of images depicting states of nudity is just pretty much what I just described right now. So somebody gets on the phone, gets online, and they're sharing a photo, like say of a 15-year-old that she's fully naked, showing her face or any identifying factors on her body. Anybody who is sharing that is in violation of that. And this can be fixed, just like she said. It kind of falls like under the same one as the first one, but the unlawful use of electronic communication is more saying like they're using a phone, they're using a computer. The other one, the unlawful disclosure of images depicting the states of nudity, it's the same thing, but it can also be like, hey, somebody brought in a photo, which I don't know, the kids do that nowadays.
I don't think they do that anymore too much.
But if they bring a photo and they're like, hey, look, like they're in possession of, it's illegal. The next one, the child sex trafficking, is pretty much what she was talking about too, like the whole task force that we do this. So anybody who is using a child to sexually exploit them, we don't use the word prostitution. Pretty much that's what it is, when they're using a kid for whether it is to sell sex or buy sex. I don't know if you want to go a little bit more further
Yeah, so
into that.
basically, if you help a child engage in any form of prostitution, you are child sex trafficking. That's in a nutshell. If you would look these up, sometimes they're really long and complex, and sometimes we even have to re-look at them, like, does this fit this statute, because it's very law terminology stuff. Also, I do want to add on for unlawful disclosure of images, that also pertains to adults. I don't know if you guys have ever heard, like, someone breaks up and then the bitter person wants to exploit the partner by sharing images or videos of them. Even threatening to disclose those images is also a crime. So you can be charged for even saying, hey, I'm gonna share your photos or I'm gonna share your images. Kids are doing that now too. Just to either get what they want or to make somebody mad or to get back at them. But unfortunately kids are now sharing it, so there's that. And then luring a minor for sexual exploitation, that is strictly when an adult is knowingly interacting with the child. It doesn't always have to happen online, but these happen more so they start online. Obviously, like she said, the second one, that's meaning you're using an electronic communication device or a phone. But that is more so like the lesser charge if someone's doing something and they don't necessarily fit the other statutes. But luring, it does have to meet a lot of criteria. Unfortunately, it's a little, if I'm being honest, it's a little difficult to charge. There's just a lot of criteria that has to be met. But luring can go hand in hand with sex trafficking. And the reason I put that on there is because, like I said, this is all happening through text, through WhatsApp, through Snapchat, because the texts delete, through DMs on Instagram. Like, kids aren't really texting each other or going out and meeting each other anymore. Everything's done online, and this is where we see it. This is what happens, and we see it start from social media. Anyone under the age of 18 cannot consent. So that's basically in a nutshell. If you're under 18, you can't consent to any of this. Even any like sexual activity, you still can't consent to that because you're not 18, you're not an adult. And then if there was kids in the audience, it's like nobody should be asking for your pictures, nobody should be asking of videos of you with no clothing on. That's just pretty simple.
And if there were kids here, I'd be telling them, and you should not be sending your photos to anyone because it's not okay, it is illegal. You are
Just
in
in
violation.
general, nobody should, if you don't know somebody online, that's our general line, like you should not be sharing your photographs to someone you don't know.
What about pictures where, we had a situation where a student was communicating with peers and they appeared to be nude from here up. So that was just the cutoff. So the appearance was that they could maybe say, I had on a tube top or I had on a bikini bathing suit top. So what if the picture appears to be, is that still?
No, unfortunately, it does have to be nude, like states of nudity, and nudity is defined by showing actual like
Parts.
genitalia.
Okay.
So
Okay.
if there is no states of nudity, it doesn't meet the criteria for child sexual abuse material. Unfortunately.
There is such thing as inappropriate, right? And we do get those cases where, you know, we get parents like, I found this on my kid's phone and they're inappropriate photos, and then we get the phone, we do an extraction, and then we seem like, unfortunately, it's not something that we can charge because it's not, just because we think it is, doesn't mean that it is, but sometimes you just never know what you're gonna find in those phones.
So I kind of hit on like mental health, just because I've seen in some of my cases where a child ultimately falls a victim to unlawful disclosure of images. So there is a rise in self-harming and suicide amongst teenagers. Typically, physical pain is a distraction from emotional pain that some are struggling with. So more children are experiencing depression, anxiety, and eating disorders, or having low self-esteem, or feeling like they're not good enough. Being bullied or cyberbullying or feeling alone, experiencing emotional, physical abuse, sexual abuse, or neglect. I couldn't find anything that said social media is the cause for this, but given that kids are on social media like 5 hours a day, I don't know, I kind of put 2 and 2 together, maybe that has something to do with it. There's just an overload. Using social media too much can push out other activities. For example, include being in person with friends and family or getting enough sleep. So kind of like we're saying, they're just on their phones all day, looking at posts, looking at reels, looking at what other kids are doing. Social media can also expose teens to content that is violent, dangerous, or inaccurate. Social media can present idealized images of people or lifestyle that can lead to issues with body image, self-esteem, or potential for crime. I've had I've heard, not me personally have had, but there's been situations where a child, like I said, was communicating with somebody online and that person they were touching the luring part, the grooming stage of telling them like, oh, if you come with me, like your life is gonna be great, your life is gonna be this, I'll buy you whatever you want, and then that's how kids think that if they go with this person, they're gonna be promised that particular lifestyle. They're seeing, oh, this girl, and she's an influencer, she has all this money, all these clothes, all this stuff, they have this glamorous lifestyle, so I think kids think that that's real life, and they think that that's something that can happen to them.
Have you guys heard of people posting videos where they're encouraging kids to try out like self-harm methods?
I haven't run into that, but I have heard of that.
Okay, because I was gonna say a couple of students shared, but then when they like went to show me the videos, they had been deleted or removed, which I'm sure is
I know
why.
there's,
But
like, trends that they come out every now and then where kids are like self-harming, not necessarily like cutting themselves, but doing things that are harmful to them. So like I know like a while back, and this is like a while back, for kids it was like the whole cinnamon thing where they put the spoon and the kids were like choking, and there was another one that came out. So it is out there, like everything is out there for them. Unfortunately, they are very exposed. And like she said, online grooming is a big issue right now. That's something that is happening. Predators will get online and like, you know, be chatting with kids, and there's things such as Venmo, Zelle, Cash App, where they start grooming these kids like, hey, I'll send you, or Amazon gift deliveries, you know, and parents are unaware that this is happening. So kids want stuff that they can't get from their parents, and they start engaging with these people. These people start to understanding them, getting to know them, making them laugh. That's all they want to talk about, is just like their friends online. Because it's true, kids are not out there nowadays like we were before, right? We would be outside playing with our friends. We would go to the mall, you know, kids are not like, you go outside, if there's a kid outside, he's like walking like this with their phone. So they really don't want to socialize. And COVID didn't help. Quarantine didn't help. It made kids want to stay home and like be sheltered and not come out. Their friends, everything was online, school, friends. So we feel like actually since COVID, there was a high rise on the child sexual abuse material, was because people were creating it at home. Even kids themselves, they were like making videos, they were taking pictures, they sell them for, we've had cases where kids are selling their own photos in exchange of like gifts.
Yeah, not to get too much into detail, I had a victim / suspect, because I couldn't determine if she was being groomed, but it was on the Discord app, and when I learned about the Discord app, that app scared me, because she portrayed herself as an older individual, and she became smart in a sense that she knew what she was doing, and she was 12, and she was getting, like she said, like Amazon gifts to her house. She had an account on Amazon with a balance of people sending her money, and she was selling her own photographs. Yeah, so 12 years old. So that's when she got caught. So I have no idea when that started. So victims may not come forward. And like I said, it's up to the juvenile courts ultimately what their consequence is going to be. And I tell this to a lot of parents and people that I hope this makes sense. Like, our job is, if there's a crime and we can identify it, we charge it if the person wants to aid in prosecution. That's officers, detectives, that's literally what our job is. Ultimately, when it gets to the courts, that's where the official charges, if anything's going to get charged, that's where that happens. The judge has the decision ultimately for that. So victims may not come forward, and I think most children are victims, but unfortunately there are those victims or children that are not victims, but their parents think they're victims. And either way, most of them aren't going to come forward because there's a fear of getting in trouble, or they know that there's something that's going on. I might be getting a little too ahead of myself, I'm sorry. So victims may deny or lie about their involvement. So for whatever reason, they're gonna lie because they think they're in trouble, or there's embarrassment, there's shame, there's guilt, or they know they're doing something wrong, essentially. So that's not uncommon. Victims may also recount their previous statements, and just so you know, this goes for adults as well. So it's not just to kids. So they might recount their previous statements. So we'll have people come in and be like, yes, this happened to me, and say all the details, and then weeks later, oh, I'm just kidding, that didn't happen, I was making that all up. Like I said, victims often feel shame, guilt, and embarrassment. Victims often use coping mechanisms they believe are helpful, but can often lead to self-harming habits or suicide. I think that's most adults and children, but we're seeing it more in children too, just unfortunately. And then, like I said, if you feel like you're harming yourself, you're not alone. There's some resources here for people if they feel like they need to call someone or text. Because I think kids tend to text more often if you feel like you can't talk to somebody. So just know, even if you guys deal with students, if you guys experience any of this, it's very common. Or like maybe a student will tell the school counselor everything, and then once parents come, they're like, I don't know what they're talking about, I didn't say anything, and then they completely change their statements. So that's very, very normal. These are some tips for parents.
Yes, so tips for parents, just talk to your children about the dangers of online strangers, sharing images to family and friends, and the crimes discussed. Teach your children the correct terminology for their genitalia, no, not slang terms. We were just talking about that. So we have in our investigations what is called forensic interviews, where a child is interviewed in the way which is in like non-leading manner, no direct questions. A lot of these children and teenagers, they come in saying like, my pirates, or that thing, or cookie, or stuff like that. So this is very important, and I know it has to do a lot with like culture or tradition that we tend to say like, hey, don't say that word, like it doesn't sound good. It doesn't, but at the end of the day, it's like, they are our body parts, so we are encouraging people, parents, to tell their children about how to use the proper term and not like that thing or like there, you know, because it seems like a lot of the children are very ashamed of saying it.
And to kind of further, I always tell parents that because it actually goes a lot further as far as court purposes. So for example, if a child cannot identify their anatomy and can't say the proper terms for their genitals, and they have a slang term, the defense side can, I know it sounds dumb, but the defense can literally be like, that's not what that means, I don't know what that is, why would she say that versus the actual term, just to create doubt for the jury. That's their only job if this were to go to trial. So we always encourage parents, like as uncomfortable as it may be, your best bet is your child to know their bodies and what the other body parts are, like male and female. That way, if God forbid something ever happens to these kids or your kids, they know how to explain to you correctly what happened to them. So that's the whole point.
Pay attention to the apps on your child's devices and how they are used. Know your child's social media profiles and who their friends are. Monitor screen time. Just like you said that, you know, you have kids coming up saying like, hey, I'm playing with my friends. Like, who are your friends? They don't know their friends. They've never met them. These are just people that they're just randomly talking to or they're adding on social media. Monitor screen time. Sometimes it's easier for us as parents to be like, oh, here you go, a tablet. And that's how it starts, right? How many little kids you see, 2-3-year-olds, they know how to work a phone. Or teenagers that all they wanna do is just be in their rooms, use their phones. Personal experience, my kids try to do that to me all the time. I'm like, nah, put the phone away. So it is very important because they get consumed in that world, and it's so easy to just like fall into the deep, and then when everything comes out, it's just too late. You know, they're just way too deep in there. They become victims of like people who are trying to harm them in ways that they access social media.
So monitor text, there is such thing as deleted text, if you guys didn't know that, especially on the iPhone. You can literally see all the deleted text unless they go into the deleted text and delete all of those. Messages on social media, there's such thing as hidden folders. You can have a hidden folder of photographs. That happens more often than not. Kids are not dumb when it comes to these electronics. And basically all other digital communication, and you have to explain why this is necessary. If there's parents here, I would just tell them, yes, I can understand wanting to give your child privacy. I get that children are growing up. I don't know what it's like to have a teenager, so I'm not gonna give that advice. But at the end of the day, you're paying for that phone, you're paying for this child's lifestyle. Your child does not have the luxury of privacy. So if something's happening, you have every right to find out or investigate what's going on with your kid's phone. And it's gonna be the phone. It's never how often do you see a laptop? It's not a laptop, it's always their phone. That's why they freak out when you take their phone. You're taking their entire life from them. So it's always the phone. So don't be afraid to not know your kid's passcode or to have these rules in place, basically.
And like she said, there were parents here, I would highly encourage them to if they get their kids' phones, I hope they do, go through every single app. Even if it says text messages, click on it, because these kids are getting so smart. Like, an app would literally say text message, and it's a folder for pictures, you know? So it's not only kids, adults do it all the time, which I'm sure kids learn it from adults. But it is a thing, and it's real. Talk to your children about topics like sexting, child pornography, grooming, cyberbullying, even if it's uncomfortable, ensure they understand.
That's pretty self-explanatory.
And then,
Go ahead,
sorry. And then be your child's advocate, be aware of your child that can commit these crimes as well. If your child is closest to you, do not react in anger, because what happens when we react in anger? They don't wanna talk, they shut down. As much as it makes us mad, we do have to this is really good, to explain to parents and kids so that we don't get to that point. And if we do get to that point, unfortunately, they have enough trust to talk to us about what's going on.
I'll kind of add to that too. It's hard to hear when your kids tell you something bad that they did, and it's never easy because you never think it's your kid until it's your kid.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of parents never think it's their kid. I think my favorite phrase is my kid would never do that, and it's like, no, they did. I'm sorry. And then they have to hit that realization that this is happening. The kid's not always a suspect either. It's just like I said, we're just seeing so much of someone gets a naked picture and then they send it to their friend, they send it to another friend. Next thing you know, everyone has it, and then this child has to go into school and face this. I think that would be hard for an adult. I don't know what that would be like with the mentality of a child. So if your kid comes to you, I promise you the damage probably was already done. They're coming to you way after everything's done. My best advice is what's done is done. Let's just try to figure out how to move forward and just be grateful that your kid came to you, because 9 times out of 10 they're not gonna tell you. They're gonna try to fix it until they ultimately can't. Or until we come to your house, and then now there's no choice.
What she said right now, you're fine. What she said right now, fixing it. So, not like she said, not to go into details. How do you think a child would fix this whole situation? Like if a photo was sent out, or somebody's threatening them online, like, hey, I'm gonna send out your photos. Like, how do you think they're gonna fix it?
Threaten them back with whatever they can find.
Okay. Anyone else? I'm
Send
going
it
somewhere
out
with this.
before
I
they
promise.
can.
The what?
Send it out before they can.
Okay, so one of and this is one of the main things that we get in these cases, it's theft by extortion. So they will tell them if you don't pay me $50 or you don't send me $20 via Venmo, Cash App, this is gonna go out. So what does the kid do? Hey mom, I need $20, blah, blah, blah. The parents sends it, or they have it, and then they pay the person, the perpetrator, and then they want more and more. So that's how kids try to fix it until they can't fix it no more. So now they have to tell parents. Threatening.
I forgot about that.
Yeah.
Scams are getting more popular too.
And
kids and adults.
yes, and unfortunately, sometimes it's not even kids. These kids are chatting with people they just met online, and they're in Africa. They're, I don't know, in Russia. They're in other countries, so we can't do anything. Like when they are that far, like we can't fly out to Russia and arrest someone. So we tell kids, when we have these cases, or at least I can speak for myself with my victims, I talk to the kids. We've done educational on children and told them like, hey, whatever you send out, it's there, it's out there, like it won't ever go away, it's forever on the internet. I had a victim who was now in her 30s, and her photo from like when she was like 12 is going around online, or it went around online. So that is one thing that we do get a lot, is kids trying to pay whoever is the person, or I don't know so much about threats. We've had cases where like kids are threatening back each other, well, I'll send yours and stuff like that. But kids typically, they try to fix it by sending money or like paying the perpetrator.
And then just observe changes in behavior. You know your kid better than anybody in this world. You're the one who raised them. And even though it might feel like you don't know your kids sometimes, I promise you, you know them better than probably a stranger. So if their habits start changing, their moods start changing, something's probably going on. It doesn't always lead to this, that's not what I'm saying, but just always keep aware of what your kid's doing, always keep that open communication, or try to. Cause like we said, kids don't really talk anymore, they're just kind of scrolling on their phone, they don't wanna talk. But if something's going on, or I always feel like your gut always knows, if something's not right, probably something's not right. Report crimes to local law enforcement. So even if, unfortunately, and I mean, we can't make people do this, but a lot of times too, friends will confide in friends who then tell their parents, and they have no idea who this friend is. That's where the schools really come in that are really helpful. Because we've had cases like that where it's like, my son told me his friend I only have the first name, said this to them, and they go to this school, I have nothing more, and now we're coming to the school to try to figure out what's going on. It's better to report it and it's nothing than not report it and something serious is going on. That's just kind of my baseline. And then these are some resources I'm kind of done. So we work at the Southwest Family Advocacy Center. That is our website. So what that is, an advocacy center is like a victim center. So the people that work there is Avondale, Goodyear, Buckeye, Maricopa County Sheriff's Office, and then the Department of Child Safety. So more than likely, most of the kids here are gonna fall within this jurisdiction, and they're gonna be, if they are a victim of a crime and need our services, they are gonna come to the Southwest Family Advocacy Center. That website is really great. There's like a resources tab that has a bunch of stuff for, like, they do online classes and sometimes even in-person classes if parents want to learn more about these kinds of things, or if their children have been victims of crimes. So that's where we work out of. It doesn't look anything like a police station, it's more of an office.
And we do tell parents that whenever we get cases, we let them know like, hey, kids are not coming to like a police department, like it's the center, because a lot of parents are like, oh, I don't want my kid around, police, or they're already shut down, they don't wanna talk to anyone. So yeah.
These are some good documentaries if you're truly interested. A lot of my information came from this documentary called Sextortion, The Hidden Pandemic. It's on Prime. I don't believe it's free, but if you wanted to learn more about it, I know you watched Bad Influence.
Bad
It's on
Influence.
Netflix. That is free if you have Netflix. That's just basically the impact of social media, or kids recording themselves that has on them, like the kid famous stars that are on social media.
Has anyone seen those?
Oh, sorry.
No, sorry, I was just gonna say real quick, so this one, the Bad Influence one, the only reason I didn't know what it was about, but my daughter told me, she brought it up, she's like, oh mom, look, it's on Netflix. She's like, these kids, I would watch them all the time on YouTube in like 2020, and I'm like, what are you talking about? She's like, yeah, like the mom did something to them. Click, I was like, we're watching it. So without giving it away, it has to do a lot with this. Highly recommend, and the kids will watch it because it's something that they used to watch. So they get to see like the backside of like, I guess you can say the exploitation of a minor, on social media.
And then if you really wanna go down a little true crimey dark path, this is a fiction film, but I watched it. It's called Adolescence, and it's fiction, but it's basically, if you haven't heard of it or haven't seen it, it's basically about this kid that committed a crime. And it literally came down to, I believe he was being cyberbullied or bullied online, and then he ended up doing something to, I think, retaliation wise. But it really showed, it's not really gory or anything like that, like you don't see the actual violence or anything, but you see more so the impact it had on the family and on the parents. I thought it was really good if you guys are interested. Just to kind of give you a baseline, because I don't know about you, but I love true crime shows and stuff like that. And since we actually do it, I'm very critical. I'm like, that's not true. You can't do that. I'm like, that would never happen in real life. And
You don't solve all your crimes in an hour?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
So even though that show's fiction, it really does show the other side, like just the impact on the parents, the sibling, the community, and like when your kid does something. Unfortunately, in that show, it is a suspect like the suspect side of the family. Not so much focused on the kid, it's more so just how everything transpired, and it all came down to social media, what was happening online, and that he wasn't telling anybody, and their parents had no idea that this was even going on until it was way too late. And then I did put this up again just in case anybody wanted, if they're in trouble or if they feel like they need to talk to somebody that they can't talk to, just some resources. And I think that, yeah, if you guys have any questions, I don't know if you guys do, you guys are really good at asking, so if you guys have any other questions, feel free to ask us or pick our brains on anything you think might help you guys as far as the school goes.
And just real quick, what you said right now, oh, you guys don't solve crimes in an hour. If parents were here, we would totally be telling them how, most cases, right, these investigations can take weeks to months. So we get a lot of parents who bring in their child and they're like, well, here's the evidence, you gotta go arrest them, or you have to forward charges. Like, it does not work like that. Like, there's so much to it. It's just a whole investigative process. So I think a lot of parents too, they get very upset with us and they're like, but this is what we have. Well, there's a lot behind it that we have to, it's kind of like, it's building a case, right? If we don't have enough, then we can't charge it, we can't go make an arrest. But yeah, if we have parents, we would tell them, so let them know they need to be here next time. It's very educational, and like I said, we both speak Spanish, so if it's something that parents were like, I don't know what this is about, like, you know, we can explain pretty much
We
what
could
she
make
did.
this in Spanish if
Yes,
needed.
and we just thought
We
about
can
it
definitely
too.
do that.
We just thought about it, maybe next time too, we can do that, to where we can put it on both, and then if she explains that, and we can both take turns.
One thing I'll say too, in case you guys ever run into it, and this won't fall on you, this is more on the parents, I just know that it's just cause you guys seem to catch a lot of stuff cause the kids come here and then it falls on your guys' plate and then you guys are calling us. Just know that whenever we get some kind of image or video or something in question that's on a phone, you guys won't do this, but we will. Even if they're the victim, their phone is needed. And parents don't understand that. They'll be like, why can't you just take the suspect's phone? They're the ones that did it, which can very much be true. But unfortunately, I can't just take the suspect's phone without enough, we call it probable cause or reasonable suspicion to seize their item, and then you need probable cause to get into the phone. And you need search warrants to get into the phone. I don't necessarily need a search warrant to take a phone. But what good is a phone if I can't get into it? So we can't go off of kids' statements alone, or adult statements. A statement alone isn't enough. So a lot of times if there is communication between the victim and the perpetrator, or the victim and the suspect, whatever you prefer, we do need the victim phone, because if that has the messages, that's what's gonna get us into their phone. So a lot of parents tend to not understand that process, or they don't wanna give up the child's phone. which can make our investigations a little difficult. And then there's that lack of understanding, like, well, why can't you guys do this? Why? And it's like, well, we have to start with you guys. Like, you're the victim, it's your story, you need to tell us what happened, and we need to access basically your records to get to their records. Cause I've gotten, I don't know if you've gotten that a lot,
And there's
where the parents don't wanna give up their kid's phone, and I get it, we're not saying we're gonna keep it forever. Unfortunately, it's not us, like, you're not gonna get it back in a couple days, unfortunately, cause they're not the only phone we gotta get into, sadly. I wish that was the case, but, phones are a huge thing, and I get it. We're not stealing your phone, you're gonna get your phone back as long as, it's not pertaining to the, like, how do I explain that? We can't guarantee you're gonna get your phone back if there is, like, crazy evidence on there, because, if there's stuff like pornography or stuff on there, then that's something we have to wipe before we give it back to you, because now we can't release pornography back to the child or back to the family. But like I said, if it's like messages and stuff like that, like corroborating evidence, and this is for any crime, we have to get essentially a copy of what's on your phone, and then you kind of get your phone back if it's nothing that is stopping us from giving the phone back. And it is the victim's choice. It always is the victim's choice. We can't make you guys give up your phones, but just keep that in mind when it comes to investigations. Unfortunately, it starts with you because it happened to you, and you need to help us so we can help you guys.